Welcome, welcome. Good morning. My name is Paloma Lopez. I'm the Education Manager at the Indian Arts Research Center here at the School for Advanced Research. Thank you all so much for joining us for this last event of our 2025 speaker series on mentorship in the arts. We're so happy to have the Growing Thunders here to close us out. It's really exciting. So I will just do a brief introduction and turn things over. Assiniboine and Sioux artist Juanita Growing Thunder Fogarty is a second-generation traditional Northern Plains artist who has spent much of her life learning from her mother, award-winning artist Joyce Growing Thunder. Juanita creates traditional Northern Plains clothing and accessories adorned with beadwork and porcupine quill embroidery. She also creates soft sculpture dolls that emulate historical Dakota Nakoda attire. Please welcome Juanita. Jessa Rae Growing Thunder comes from the Fort Peck Assiniboine Sioux tribes. She is a third-generation beadwork and quillwork artist whose work has been shown in multiple museums across the country. Jessa Rae is a Great Plains tribal art historian who holds a Ph.D. in Native American Studies from the University of California, Davis. Her work applies both recognized and traditional creative forms of knowledge transmission through analyzing beadwork as living testimony. Jessa Rae is the 2022 Luce Indigenous Knowledge Fellow and remains committed to beadwork, quillwork histories, and education through her various community-based projects. Jessa Rae serves as the Director of Tribal Nations Initiatives and Native Americans in Philanthropy. She has a background in program and project development, program management, network facilitation, and decolonial methodologies. Welcome, Jessa Rae. Cameron Growing Thunder, Assiniboine Sioux Kiowa Comanche, is an award-winning third-generation artist from the Fort Peck Reservation in Montana. Cameron learned traditional beadwork and quillwork while growing up from her mother and grandmother, Joyce and Juanita Growing Thunder. She was a self-taught painter until attending the Institute of American Indian Arts here in Santa Fe, where she is currently pursuing a BFA in studio arts with an emphasis in painting, and currently has works exhibited at the Joslyn Art Museum in Omaha, Nebraska. Cameron also combines mediums to create contemporary native fashion accessories and first began building her career at 13 after winning a Best of Classification Youth Division at Santa Fe Indian Market in 2017 for her first contemporary painted parfleche handbag. By using parfleche and alcohol-based paints, she refurbishes vintage tiled handbags into contemporary native fashion accessories that invite audiences to explore an indigenous pop surrealist world. Cameron has since continued expanding her painted handbags into jewelry making and multimedia painting. Welcome, Cameron. So I will turn things over to the Growing Thunders for now, and when they're finished, we'll have some time for questions, so hold your questions until the end, and we'll call out for them. Thank you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, all. How are we all doing? Oh, we could do a little bit better than that. How are we doing? That's better. My name is Jessa Rae Growing Thunder. I come from the Fort Peck Assiniboine and Sioux tribes of northeastern Montana. So we're northern girls down here in the desert. We come from the Fort Peck Reservation, so we're the far northeast corner of Montana. How many folks have been to Montana? Oh, I love that. Sometimes you ask that question and nobody raises their hand. Typically, when people think about Montana, they think of, the Glacier National Park, the big, beautiful mountains and the scenery. That's not where we come from. We come from the Northern Plains. We come from like big sky country. That's the intention there, is the rolling plains and the big, beautiful, big blue skies and the clouds there. Like, New Mexico's got beautiful clouds, but there is nothing like Montana clouds. Yeah. So we're the far northeast corner of Montana. We sit right on the border of Canada and North Dakota. We are Dakota Sioux and Nakoda Assiniboine. So we come from the Oceti Sakowin people, the roughly translated to encompass all Sioux clans and communities, the Dakota, Lakota, Nakoda people. So we're really happy to be here with you all today. Our people come from the Buffalo Nation, the Tatonko Oyate. I'm a third generation beadwork and quillwork artist, and I say third generation in the sense that I have had the great honor and blessing of, like, this is a real, like, a gift that I have grown up literally at the same table with my ina, my mom, and my unchi, my grandma. Literally at the same table with them. So when I say third generation, that's what I mean, is that I've been physically at the table with them since I picked up my first needle and thread at 3 years old. But really, we are probably more like 7th generation, 10th generation, because my unchi, my grandma, she learned from her grandmas, who learned from their grandmas, and so on and so forth. And so I just want to make sure I acknowledge that we are here today with you all, but we are like the ones speaking to you, but by all means, there is a lineage that is here with us. So pleasure to be here with you all today. We're gonna have some fun. And I will let my family introduce themselves and we'll dive right in.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cameron Growing Thunder. I am my mother's youngest child. I am 22 years old, and as stated previously, I am currently attending the Institute of American Indian Arts. I'm in my senior year pursuing my bachelor's in fine arts and with an emphasis in painting, but I grew up doing all the same traditional arts that my mom and my grandma and my older sister were doing as well. So I like to say that I exist at an intersection between contemporary and traditional arts, in the sense that I combine mediums and materials and techniques that are both contemporary, like painting, like alcohol markers, or contemporary pop culture iconography with cultural, like traditional teachings like beadwork, beadwork designs and patterns. So I always like to emphasize that the modern aspects of my work and the traditional aspects are not mutually exclusive. They work together in harmony to create their own special little genre. But yeah, that's me. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. I'm Juanita. I'm their mother. And I'm going to just go ahead and let them do most of the talking today because I think you're going to learn a lot. Jessa has been an educator for quite many years, and I figure that's what you all are here to do, is learn something. So she does a great job in explaining things in a really good way. So I'm excited, and I'm so proud of them. And this is my life's work, is to be able to have them stand up here like this and be their own artists. And this was what I intended with them all along, was that they shine on their own. So I'm just proud of you. Proud of you.
Thanks, Mom. I'm the talker. I like to talk, and I want to point something out. So I'm a mom. I'm an ina, and so my little girls are here with us today. Say hi, girls. Hi. And so this is how I grew up. My mom. I'm the oldest of their 24 grandbabies. Yeah. That's me. And so my mom always made sure to take me everywhere. You know, my mom and my grandma have been doing Santa Fe Indian Market for how many years, Mom?
This will be 40th year.
This is the 40th year. My first Indian market, I was a week old. I was born at the University of New Mexico hospital, and then they threw me in a cradle board and brought me up to Santa Fe. No joke. There's still people that will come up with like pictures. And so I grew up like this. My mom always took me everywhere. She made sure that if she needed to do a presentation or a demonstration, or she needed to go visit collections somewhere, I was there with her. And that's why I'm the comfortable one in front of you all, is because she raised me to understand that I have a space here and that I have agency in these rooms. And so I thank her every day for that, because I recognize that this is a privilege to be here with you all. There's so many legacies and like just phenomenal masters of art that don't ever get to be here. And instead they're back home working day in and day out just to uphold these things. And so this is a privilege, and I recognize that. And I want my girls to understand that they can be here too. Because y'all think I can talk a lot, just wait until they get in front of me. So I wanted to point that out and acknowledge that. Like, you may hear my girls up here, but I encourage you all to always encourage kids to be present in these things. They are the ones that this is all for. You know, we're here talking about intergenerational work and knowledge and art, and none of us would be here without them. This is literally all for them. So thank you, girls. I love you. And so I wanted to kind of start us and talk a little bit about, who we are, what we do, and the history of beadwork and quillwork, which is our art form. And then, of course, like Cameron, my little sister, has just kind of like taken this above and beyond anything that I could have ever imagined. And to kind of situate that, like, this is an intergenerational practice. And so you'll see behind me, there's going to be like a slideshow of like various work. Some of it is work we've done individually. Some of it is work that we've done together. And some of it will be in process photos, so you can kind of see what that looks like. At the same time, we are also up here working. Right now we have on this table a women's northern traditional buckskin top. Which is a generational project that we're all working on for the Denver Art Museum. And so we wanted to bring this here and like show you like what this actually looks like. Because oftentimes we get in front of folks and we talk about like working at the same table together, and it's a different thing when you actually see it, right? So this is kind of new for us. We'll see how it works, right? So we are beadwork and quillwork artists. And I want to kind of like talk a little bit about the history of this, because you can't talk about beadwork without talking about the history of quillwork, because quillwork is what was given to us way before colonization, way before any of this here. And it was the gift to create art. And it was given to women very intentionally. And like that is the foundation of everything, right? A remarkable thing to be able to create art and to create life simultaneously. And so quillwork, porcupine quillwork, is a truly, truly indigenous art form in the sense that it was way before colonization. I mean, we have oral histories that talk about quillwork in tandem with the creation of this world around us. It was given to us by a very, very remarkable being, Oceti. She has many names, many forms. In English, you often hear her acknowledged as double woman. And she's one of these elusive beings that is very, very often in a lot of our oral histories. And very often in the oral histories about creation and why we are all here in this world. And it was her that when we emerged into what we now know as this world, she was the one that gave us the ability to create art. She is the one that came to us and said, I'm going to select women, sometimes occasionally men, but predominantly women, who I see through, who I recognize are upstanding and have that in them to create art. I'm going to teach them how to navigate the landscape around them, how to get those porcupine quills off of a porcupine without killing him. Believe me, I've tried this. It's not easy. How to use natural dyes. And porcupine quills are keratin. They are not a fiber. So it is essentially natural dyes that would take to your hair. This is a deep indigenous science, y'all. I have been doing natural dyes for about 4 years now. This is not an easy process. So we had to know how to get porcupine quills. We had to know what natural dyes would take to a quill. We had to know how to tan hides, animal hides, how to smoke them. We had to know how to get sinew off of the, it's the tendon, right? Mm-hmm. It's the tendon of an animal. So you can get that from deer, from elk, from buffalo, that would create our natural thread. Like, you had to know how to navigate everything around you, the natural landscape, the environment, the deep cultural nature nexus, right? Because everything about that is a living being. So you had to know how to navigate through that without throwing anything out of balance. And then you can create. So you have to do all of this work before you can even lay down your first stitch. That is a gift. So when we were given this gift, this process was, she selects who to give this gift to. Somebody that has it in their heart, because she gives you a choice. She comes to you and she says, if you accept, you will gain all of this knowledge and all of these responsibilities, but you have to live this way for the rest of your life. You must walk with compassion. You must uphold your culture. You must uphold your kinship values. You must always give, never take. Like, this was a responsibility of yours. Or you can say no and walk away. It was a choice. And so she would come to you, and if you accepted, you would by all means walk this way of life. And your ability to create art, to clothe your people, to clothe your horses, to clothe, your homes, to make everything around you beautiful. Like, what a gift, right? And so, long before we had even our first encounters with colonization and with Western settlers, our women were doing this. And this was by all means, like, these are, what we in English define as like societies, right? Because these women would come together and they would sit here like this. Sometimes it was families, sometimes it was generations of families sitting together. Other times it was, not like blood lineage, but by all means kinship, by all means family. And it was never this process of, you get this gift and then you go over here to your studio and you do this isolated, behind closed doors with nobody around you. No, it was, you go and you sit in the teepee with the other women and you sit there all day and you work together. You laugh, you cry, you share stories, you sing, you educate. And it's this deep process of learning, constant learning of not only your practice as an artist, but learning everything. How we navigate as a socio-political community, how we navigate our landscape, like all of this. We were never meant to do this alone. This is how we were supposed to do this, at the same table together. And so I was raised understanding these histories. And I recognized at 6 years old, like I talk about being 6 all the time because this was my core moment in my life where it made sense and it clicked for me that like this is a responsibility. This is beautiful. This is a privilege. This is an honor that not everybody has to still in 2025 be at the same table with the women in my family doing this. I don't have to be isolated. I don't have to be behind closed doors. I don't have a studio. But instead, I can sit there with my family even when we're states away, and they'll come and they'll visit and they'll travel with their suitcases. Like, just context here. My mom and my grandma, they do this every single day. Cameron laughs because like it's crazy. They do this every day. They wake up at about 3 a.m., right, Mom? 3 a.m. Grandma's usually the first awake, and then she'll go wake up Mom. Coffee. Yep. And then they'll bead and they quill all day long, and they'll eat dinner at probably about 4 now, about 4 p.m. And then by 6:30, they're done.
Yeah. They may work after dinner for a while too. So.
She says they may work after dinner, but that's crazy to me. So like they don't do 9-hour days or 8-hour days. They do like 14 hours, 16-hour days. And this is just a lifestyle. They don't take vacations. They don't take breaks. When they travel, it is the wildest thing. They will travel with suitcases full of beads and quills and like projects. It is wild. My husband, first married into our family, he used to like laugh and crack jokes about the Growing Thunder women and all of their bags. Because when we travel, we have to take all of those bags because you never know when you're going to have 5 minutes to lay down some stitches. And guess what? They'll still get up at 3 a.m. and they'll be turning all the lights on in the house or in your hotel room, and they're getting up and they're beading because, they're going to have a presentation at 11:30. But until then, they can get some work done. Wild, right?
There is no rest in our family.
There's no rest. And so imagine being a little kid, a little person, and growing up in that, and it was wild. And so I was 6 years old when it was my core moment in my life, right? Like that moment in the movie that the whole movie starts with, and that moment in the book where you start to understand what this book is about, right? And so I was 6 years old, and this is how I grew up. And I went to my friend's house, and I understood I was Native and Kayla wasn't. I understood that at 6 years old. I got it. But for the life of me, I could not figure out why Kayla's mom was not beading. It made no sense to me, and so it baffled me, and I was like fixated on that all day. And so when I went home, I asked Mom, well, why do you do that? Because I'm 6 years old. I don't get it. Like, why? Like, I'm thinking to myself, that's a lot, and this isn't normal. And so my mom at 6 years old, she explained to me. She sat me down and she explained, this is a responsibility. When we do these little things every day, like pick up your needle and thread and bead and quill, or when you pray or when you go dance, like all of these little things are a responsibility because they guarantee that my grandbabies and my great-grandbabies are going to have them. And at 6 years old, that clicked. Don't discredit your little humans in your life. Like, they get stuff. And so, when we think about the intention and the history of quillwork and beadwork and the ability to create art, this is what it's about. This is guaranteeing its survivance for the next generation. Because as long as we could pick up our needle and thread, those histories and those stories and those significances and those intentions, because everything is intentional, they continue. And that's beautiful. So this is all like, this is my jam, y'all. See, I am a talker. I can sit here and I can talk. And so you look at the progression of westward expansion, and, we had porcupine quillwork as a truly indigenous art form, the ability to create beauty around you. And then when we got trade items like seed beads, materials, even the first needles, like when we started to get all of these new resources, it was the quill workers that first picked them up. And you can visually see this. You can go into any museum collections and you can look at this and you can see it like written, that these women started incorporating rows of beads within their quill work. And then soon it was more and more beads. And soon we were mixing it. And sometimes we were leaving quill work altogether and we were only doing the beadwork. And so when we talk about the protocols and the traditions of beadwork, it is tied to the quill work, because it is those quill workers who picked up the beads. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so to be able to be here in 2025 and be a practicing beadwork and quillwork artist, it's all tied to that. I can sit here and I can talk about these things that are generations ago, but in all actuality, when we hear these things and when we are talking about them, it's much deeper than that. We feel it. We embody it. I don't hear these stories of Anukite and think that these are like myths or legends or things that are kind of mysterious that we just talk about, but I hear them and I feel them as truth, that they actually happened, and they don't feel like they were that long ago. Because when I sit down, it's like this weird feeling of like, you're not really here and you're not really there. But it's almost like when you're an artist, you can understand this. It's a very spiritual process, right? Because you feel it. Like you're not here, you're not there, but you feel like you're a part of something much bigger. And I see a lot of head nodding in the room. And there's a lot of artists in the room that totally get that. Yeah. And so I wanna give my Ina, my mom, and my little sister, Cameron, some time to talk about what this means for them, to be an intergenerational artist. Because I think this is like one of these rare occasions where like you get the three of us together in a room, and like, thank you, SAR. Thank you for this, because I look at my little sister, she's gonna be graduating from IIA later this year, and like, she's got like more talent in her little pinky than like I could ever accomplish. And it's been like one of these really cool things to watch her take this work and like elevate it and do these like really amazing, phenomenal things. Like you'll see like her parfleche bags, and like parfleche, like that's animal skin, and like she applies paint to it, and she does pop art on it, and like she's also beading on it, and like she's like, I'm like, this is so freaking cool, right? Okay, so I'm gonna quit talking, and I want to turn the floor over to them and let them kind of talk about like their reflections of what does it mean to be an intergenerational artist. You don't have to stand up if you don't want to. Okay.
I'm comfortable. I'm working. We're working girls. Yeah, I'm really grateful to be here today. This is my entire life. This has always been my life. It's a really great honor and a privilege to have my mom as my mom, because the way that I grew up is, I think, very unique. Like, not a lot of small children are up at 5 a.m. every day, happy to be sitting next to my mom, drawing pictures or beading little things. I think really, it's a part of a much larger narrative, I think, of healing our ancestral lineage, histories of displacement and survival through colonialism. I can just feel the love from my ancestors come through the work that we do and come through the work that I do. I feel like the paintings that I make speak to me almost in a way. And I know my mom shares the same sentiment that our work, we don't make the work tells us what to do, and it almost manifests itself into existence, and we are just
The vessel.
yeah, the vessel. My hands are just the tools for these ideas and these ancestors and these feelings. The love and the wounds can all speak through us. And I think that really facilitates an environment of healing for us all. This, sitting here with my mom working on this dress top, is pretty on par with what we'd normally all be doing. It's, a very communal practice. Like Jessa was saying, it was never isolated. Sorry, I got a little distracted.
You're good, Bug. Can I pull on something you're talking about? Mm-hmm. We call her Bugga. Just context there. So there's kind of this acknowledgement that I want to hone in on a little bit, because we're sitting here talking about these things being living. We don't ever design these things. We don't ever dictate what we're gonna do. I can sit there and I can try to draw out patterns, and I can try to envision what something's gonna look like, but at the end of the day, that piece has the agency to tell me, heck no. And it happens far too often, right? You can walk into something and you think you know what you're gonna do, and then it can totally change.
It's very intuitive, and that's exactly my process too, and it gets me in trouble in academic environments because I don't like to, making thumbnails and sketches never really works out for me because it comes out how it wants to come out.
And so, here, Mom, these are porcupine quills. My husband just walked in, and he brought up my quills for me because oftentimes, porcupines are really funny. Does anybody ever have any experience with porcupines? Yeah? A little bit, right? Yeah. Y'all got porcupines here. They don't get very big. You go into the woodlands or the northern plains and they get a lot bigger. Just last week I was in Maine with Abenaki and Wabanaki people, and so I had some Penobscot women there, and they were telling me their porcupines get this big, and I was like, oh my God. And so these are quills. You want to feel that? Go ahead. You can pass it down. So these are actual porcupine quills. It is cochineal. Good eye. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, pass it down. And so when we talk about these things being living, this was a part of this tradition, is that it was no coincidence that it was women who were given the ability to do quillwork and to create art, because women were created with the ability to create life. To create life, to nourish life, and to protect life. And that is why a woman was created. And so the same concept goes here, that all of your materials come from living beings. All of that energy, take the spiritual out of it. When it comes down to it, these things have energy. And so all of this living energy, you then put on a table in front of you, and you work with it, and then you also give some of your energy, some of your like physical being to it. Because, Mom, can you cut the tips off of a quill?
Find a bigger one.
Cut the tips off for me, because this is what happens. This is how you do porcupine quill work, and this is the process.
The way we learned to do it.
Yeah, so this is the way we were all taught as Oceti Sakowin women. So we cut our tips off. Don't ever, like, you always cut your tips off, y'all. Those are barbs. I could go into that science, but they are barbs. That is why your dog gets the face full of quills. And so in order to work with a quill, because quills are really hard, they're stiff. They're not pliable. So it goes in your mouth. You put it in your cheek. You soften it. And guess what? That is all of your saliva. That is a piece of you that you are contributing to the piece. And a good quill worker, she'll know when it gets the right texture, when it's soft enough that you can flatten it with your teeth and you can bend it and you can make it pliable. If you take it out too early, it will just bend and create creases in your quills, and it won't lay flat. Or if it's in their cheek too long, it'll just break. It'll get brittle. So it's this deep, intimate process of knowing your materials. And so when you take that out of your mouth and you apply it, your saliva, your enzymes from your saliva go on to those other natural materials, and they all marry. So all of this energy from all of these beings, all of these relatives, and even yours, manifests into the final product. So when we say these things are living, that's what we mean. All of that goes into the creation of it. And so they are living to us, and you can feel it. And we can even feel things off of historical pieces, and anybody that works in museums can attest to this as well, right? Where you can be in a collection and something is really strong. You feel that, and you can't really explain it, but it's this. Or sometimes something we talk to our work all the time because they are living, right? And you don't want to, those poor relatives, you don't want to just leave them there without being talked to, right, Bugga?
Yes.
And so you can sit there and you could be talking to a piece, and some of your pieces will come out and they'll have really bold personalities. We do soft sculpture dolls, and those are the funnest because they all turn into these little beings. Right, where they all get their own attitudes and personalities, and some of them are funny, some of them like to be around other pieces, some of them don't, some of them prefer to be by themselves. If you've had pieces where you're Mom,
Nicknames. They get nicknames and...
Talk into your mic, Mom.
Oh, I have a microphone. Sometimes, we're with these pieces 24/7. So when we're working on them and stuff and they're coming together, you're talking to them. Pretty soon they've got a nickname. I had my COVID doll that I did during COVID. I did a COVID doll with a mask and everything. And I had one of my dearest friends she had COVID severe and she was hospitalized and everything. So I nicknamed her Carol because I was praying for Carol while I was working on this doll. So even though she has her official name, she's Carol. So Carol's over there at the Heard Museum. So you become attached to them while you're working on them.
And we've even had instances where we'll work on several dolls at the same time. And so it's you got this little huddle of dolls sitting there up on the mantle together, the bodies, the forms. And sometimes they'll we've had times where they've pushed each other down.
Yeah, they knock each other over. You're what was that? And it's I don't know what happened.
So then you got to break them up. And,
Yeah.
So when Cameron, when she's talking about these things, there's that energy there. Right? That's what you're talking about is you feel this, because you as the artist and you as this vessel, you you feel it differently.
Yeah, I think it's really similar with painting as well, because I like to paint people and portraits, and I often find myself unconsciously speaking to my paintings, and it is very similar in the same vein where they have personalities, where some of them are shy and they don't quite want to come through yet. So some paintings some people will come through in like a week, and then others, it'll take a really long time of sitting with it and working with them and just giving them time and space. But the doll thing is really interesting, because I don't know, I always wonder, I think about like Toy Story, how they like know when people are coming, and they like know when to stop. But when we were talking about the porcupine quills, I was reminded of a story that my mom likes to tell me that I don't remember, but when I was a baby, I got into her quills with the barbs on, and put them in my mouth and was grabbing them, but they did not poke me. They didn't hurt me. So I always thought
Because
that was
they are
interesting.
living.
Yes.
Mic drop. and like that's because I remember that. I remember, like, my mom went into a panic, right? And it was the wildest thing, because you were probably, what was she, like 3?
She's about 3, yeah.
And they didn't harm her. They didn't bother her. And the quills are like that. Your materials are like that, because these are natural materials. These come from living beings. They carry that energy. And sometimes they'll fight with people. Sometimes they'll, sometimes those quills will really not like somebody, and they won't work with you.
Yeah, we a few years ago we did a workshop at the NMEI, and we were showing people how to place them in your cheek and soften them, because that's the way we know how to do it. And someone came in, put them in their cheek, and started choking and couldn't stop choking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I feel like they know. And I was like, well, this isn't for you. So this, you gave it a try. It's not for you.
But that's what it means to work with natural materials. We try to use as many natural materials as possible, because that's the intent here, right? Everything is intentional. We didn't just do things because they're aesthetically pleasing, right? We did things because there's an intention there. The colors that you're using, the materials that you're using, the designs that you're using, everything is intentional. And so we try to uphold that as much as possible, and that means using natural materials. And we'll use what we can, because we're in 2025, Amazon exists. Joann's is going out of business, but man, do we love a Joann's. But we'll use materials and resources that we have here, because our people were never static. We always adapted. We were thrilled to get new resources and new tools. But how do we carry on the integrity of our work in 2025? And I think this is what is really cool when I look at Cameron's work is, she's kind of in this, like, what do you call this, Cameron? Like, everybody always talks about living in a double world, but like, it's really cool to see Cameron's experience with this, because she's never like placed in this pigeonhole of a contemporary artist, nor in a pigeonhole of like a traditional artist, but you've found a way to like balance this.
Yeah, I don't like to say like that I'm walking in two worlds, because we are living in 2025, and but the fact that we're living in America in 2025 doesn't change the fact that I'm still an Indigenous woman that I was still raised with matriarchal values and with all of these skill sets. I think that if I have a passion for painting or drawing or jewelry making or textiles, and I have all of these tools at my disposal, and like what you were saying, how we were always like, you know, why wouldn't you take advantage of all of these tools at your disposal? I feel like I am still carrying on these traditional, these knowledges. I'm just kind of carving a new path in that process. And I see so many other young Indigenous artists that are doing the exact same thing, and it's a really amazing thing to witness and be a part of. And I just am trying to find the balance and keep that balance constantly. But yeah.
I am the talker, and it's because my mom and my grandma, they raised us to be really, really humble. And so I just want, can we give Cameron a round of applause? Because I really wanted to like celebrate her today, because she is one of the most humble beings you will ever meet. And I know it's a lot to like ask her to talk about her work and her art form, because she doesn't have an ego. You know, she upholds those values that, you know, our Unchis and our great Unchis had. And I'm really proud of her.
Thank you.
Mom, what
Yes.
does it mean for you to be an intergenerational artist?
I, like you, was raised at the work table every day, right? And it was my mom. It was my responsibility to sit there with her. And so she had to have a heavy hand when I was a young person with me, because I like to go out. I was more of the talker and out there, wanted to maybe do something else or something, but she made sure that I had all of my core learnings with teachings with quillwork and beadworks and stuff. And she actually, I couldn't go places. I had to sit there with her, right? So she was a lot stricter than I am, and I was with my girls, because I allowed them, I believe, more freedoms than I had. She was very strict about being traditional and sticking to very traditional work, and that was the way our culture was going to survive. And I understand that, and now I appreciate that, because I have those knowledges to pass along to other people. And I feel like right now it's my responsibility to share these knowledges with people. And I teach as many people as I can. If they want to come sit with me and learn these things, I'm open to it. And I can be more proud of my girls, because they did it. They learned from me and my mom. And they have made their own ways, and they're able to make things from start to finish, from a concept to a finished piece. And that's all I could have hoped for. And so for me right now, all I live, sleep, and eat is cultural preservation, and having my traditional works carried on to these younger generations and shared these knowledges with them, so that they understand what they're doing and not just emulating stuff, and they understand the meanings of these designs and why we place them there and what the shapes are, and to carry these knowledges into our further next generations. So my little granddaughter's here, they're next, they're on deck, and I expect that they'll be spending summers with me at some point. And so they're gonna be taught the way I was. I'm not going to be as strict with them, but they'll be taught in a gentle way with as much knowledge as they choose to take on. So, as many years, I've been doing this for 40 years and I still get nervous. Did you hear my voice cracking? I don't know why. But yeah, that's the big thing for me right now is cultural preservation and the gifting of this to this next generation of young people and making sure that they all have knowledges and come talk to me. I have many young friends that I know from the art shows and stuff, and they'll all come and sit and talk with me and visit and ask me questions. Yeah.
I will toot your horn a little. My mom is probably one of the best researchers you will ever meet. She like I'm sitting up here I got those letters behind my name and everything, but I am who I am because of my mom's her brain. She learns by doing. She grew up with that tactile knowledge of sitting here and doing it. But she's also she's doing it. She's traveling across the country and across the world, researching, going into collections, visiting the older pieces, sitting down and talking with unchis, talking with other people and communities about and asking the questions. That's what is always amazing to me is all you got to do is sit down and ask somebody something. That's how we learn. We are oral people. Our knowledge isn't written down. It's about sitting down and offering somebody a cup of coffee and asking, can I ask you some questions? I want to learn. If you want to learn, people are willing to teach you. So she does that, and then she's also she reads every single book. You should see her library. So she is one of the most well-equipped researchers that I have ever encountered. And my mom, she knows it. She knows what she's looking at, and she can tell you the exact reasons of why something is the way it is. And it's because of this layered understanding and this layered knowledge. So I always try to toot her horn with that because that's a remarkable muscle. So I will toot your horn. Oh, look at my quill is ready. You flatten it through your teeth, and now your quill is flexible and bendable. And then so you can maneuver it, you can manipulate it however you need to manipulate it. There's probably what did we count? 23 different quill techniques, 29?
Maybe, yeah. There's always stuff you can, and I'm always doing new stuff and different things.
So you work with it when it's moist and flexible, and then when it dries, it will harden. And sometimes, depending on your technique, those barbs will overlap with each other and lock. And that's what makes it durable. And other times, it's it just depends on your technique. But you give a piece of yourself. Sorry, my quill was ready.
I think many Native artists, and especially Native women artists, double as historians. And I think my mom and my sister are testaments to that because they are an encyclopedia. They know everything. Not everything, but if you ask them questions, they'll give you an answer.
We'll do our best.
But it's the humility in that, though, is if we don't know, we'll tell you we don't know. And my mom always does this really good thing where she'll check you and she'll be like you may have heard it a few times where she's this is how we know. This is how we're taught. We're not saying this is the only way. So it's a slight, pay attention for those things, Those little things matter.
Yeah, it's not set in stone, certainly not set in stone. And everyone has their own way of doing things. So you have to recognize that and acknowledge that.
Gee, we've been talking a lot. Can we open this up for some dialogue?
Yes, let's open it up to some questions here, back here. I'll come around with the microphone. Please ask your question into the microphone so the audience at home can hear you.
A buddy of mine's an artist up in Taos. He spent 2 years living with Lakota, studying there. And before he left, he asked his teacher, when did the Lakota do their creative work? And the guy instantly said, on the new moons, the waxing and waning crescents. Is that your experience?
I have never heard that.
I have not heard that, but we certainly pay attention to the moon. We are moon people, and Assiniboines are known to be like this, and we pay attention to new moons, full moons, but we don't have any specific teachings that pertain to that.
But that's not to say that's not the case. Because like this is a Lakota, like you're saying that's a Lakota teaching. We are Dakota. So that may be the case for some bands. Again,
Another
we
question?
cannot speak for all.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm very curious about these porcupine quills. How, did you buy them now, or did you? I mean, where did they? Yeah, I'm really curious. I'm sorry, I've had a lot of experience with porcupines. Not
Well,
pleasant.
no, we will tell you because now, once we tell you, you all need to know to let us have the porcupines if you ever find any. And so, traditionally, the oral histories they talk about, why would you kill a porcupine for its quills? Because a porcupine it's like keratin, right? So it can regrow your quills. So why would you ever take the life of a relative when he can contribute more? And so there's these great oral histories that talk about this process of, what it would mean for women to get those porcupines to release those quills, because guess what? Porcupines don't shoot their quills at you. Disney had it wrong. They release. It's a defense mechanism because tell you what, porcupines are really kind of sad. They're pitiful little creatures.
They're so cute.
They're so cute, and they got their little voices and their little faces, and the only defense they have are their quills. And so, if a predator does get too close, their bodies react and they will release the quills, but they don't shoot it. And so, these great oral histories talk about this process of like covering the porcupine with a hide or a blanket or some type of material and kind of poking him with sticks, like teasing him, so that he'll release the quills. And then that's how you would let him go. And I've tried that. That's like, remember, like we've tried, like my poor husband married into this, and it's hard. It's hard to get those quills to get released. Penobscot women last week were telling me styrofoam.
Oh,
Yeah. Will work.
I wouldn't have even thought of that.
I wouldn't have thought of that either, but they told me that it does work. But these days, living in 2025, a lot of our quills come as roadkill. We travel with porcupine kits. Once again, my husband had to marry into this. Where, you travel in some areas of the country, like when we go home to Montana, you always make, my mom raised me. When my girls' age, I have memories of like sitting on the side of the road with roadkill, making sure you're getting all those quills. Or throwing that porcupine in your rig and taking it to the hotel and,
Yeah.
yep. Because that poor little porcupine, why would you just leave him there? Put out your tobacco and thank him and, let him know that you're going to use his quills for something good and
Make something beautiful with him and he'll live
on. We also have people that in our networks that are like trappers, and so sometimes the porcupines will get caught in the traps, and so they'll throw them in the freezer for us. People do like sell the quills. There's also, we had a new one this last year. We got a new hookup. They have a cattle ranch here in New Mexico, and the electric fences, the porcupines, poor guys get caught on the electric fences, right? And so that's how they die. And so they were saying, we normally just go throw them in the ditch. And we were like, no, don't do that. So now we have that new hookup. And so it's this long, dirty process of collecting the quills, clean them, and then process them. We're using primarily natural dyes now. Indigenous science. It is by all means a science. And then all of this work, like weeks and months, could go into this process before you're even before you even have everything together to lay down your stitches.
Okay. Sorry, you had a question.
Another quill question. The little quill that came around on this side of the room, is that the source of what we're seeing in some of the work up there?
Yeah,
That
this is quilled
flattened.
right here.
And so from that small diameter, you can flatten that to get the...
And this is a photo in process. So here's like the quill. And so yeah, little by little by little. It is a very tedious process.
There are 4 stitches to every time that you lay down a quill.
4 stitches for one quill.
We have a question.
Not just one quill, one line of work. So like one little row.
Did you have a question up here?
Yes. So I was wondering how the dye gets into the quills. Do you have to mordant the quills with something first to get that
You must be a
cochineal?
dyer.
Well, I have done it before.
Yeah.
I've done natural dyes. But normally a lot of things you have to mordant. So what do you do?
You don't need a mordant for quills because it's not a fiber. And so a lot of natural dyes like the florals will not take to the keratin. So in my experience, and I've been doing this about 4 years now, and so my experience is it's a lot of roots and a lot of barks. Florals, fruits, veggies, none of that will take. And so there's no mordant necessary, and so it's almost like the same process of like you coloring your hair. I don't do this. This is not my science, but people have explained like, your hair has pores, the dye will hit it and it kind of absorb through the pores. And so it depends on, like cochineal is a really quick process. Cochineal are little bugs on the cactus. I'm like, y'all are in New Mexico, you know what cochineals are. And so it's the same process of, grinding those down to get, the powder. You boil it in your distilled water. And then once you're simmered and the cochineal is dispersed, then you can place your quills in there and you'll simmer it for about 20 minutes with like a continuous kind of flipping and maneuvering them because you don't want to overcook them or overboil them or anything because they will disintegrate. Oh, indigo is fun. Indigo is really fun because, okay, now we're getting sidetracked. So indigo is another natural dye. Indigo is in everything, all of your jeans, everything. It is the natural true blue. So indigo is a really neat dye in the sense that it oxidizes. So you can dip it in, it takes several days to make the indigo vat, to get it ready to dye anything. And so the process with indigo is you can get several different shades of blue by dipping it, and then when it hits the oxygen, it will oxidize, and so then you can re-dip it and get different shades of blue. Does not do that for quills. We did indigo the first time, and because we thought like, oh, this is great. I walked into it thinking I'm going to get all these different shades of blue. And we kept dipping and dipping and dipping, and the blue would not change.
We got a beautiful blue.
It's a beautiful blue. Absolutely stunning. But it does not change when it oxidizes.
We have a question from online here. Edie Alexi says, thank you for your amazing presentation. My question is, can you share on the importance of protection of Indigenous art knowledge and the dangers of hobbyists' appropriation of Indigenous art practices?
Somebody
I
wants to
love
get
that.
into it.
I love it because this is, this comes up quite often when we talk about quillwork and we talk about, natural dyes and working with natural materials is like for example, when I started working on natural dye processes, my grand vision and my dream was I'm going to create all these educational materials and just throw it out into the world because I want more young people to be doing this. But there is a threat out there. This work has been weaponized by non-native folks. And so I quickly, I had other tribal folks, other Oceti Sakowin people tell me, like, don't do that because it's for us. It's not for somebody who's going to go make replicas of something and then sell it to a museum as an actual historical piece. That's not what this is for. That is weaponizing these knowledges. And so I pivoted, and now I'll go travel, and I'll go to people, and I will sit down, I will go teach classes at tribal colleges, and I will go, I will go to somebody's house, or if they know to call me if they want a color that I can do for them. So it was like a pivot, right? Because you have to protect these things because we're talking about the integrity of these knowledges. And anything that is valuable can be weaponized. And so it is like my mom, she doesn't teach classes on quill work. People can come learn from her, but she's gonna ask you what your intentions are. She's gonna ask you if you've had dreams or what you're gonna do with these pieces. It's because that's part of the responsibility. We do have to protect these things. Mom, do you wanna say anything? Bugga, do you wanna say anything?
No, just that you're right. I won't teach just anybody. I know these people. If I teach somebody something, I have to know that they have integrity and that they're a good person and that they're going to uphold these values that come along with these teachings.
Because you would be shocked. Because my mom, the past 2 years, you've been teaching, I've been actively learning more about these fake quillwork and beadwork pieces that have been weaponized and find their ways into private collections and into museum collections. So these past 2 years, I've been asking her more to teach me on that so that I know, because I do a lot of consulting and I do a lot of writing and I do a lot of this work. And so I want to know if I ever need to step in and let somebody know, I don't believe that's real. And so it's been a whirlwind because you would be surprised at how often this happens. And I appreciate this question because it is something we don't talk about very often. We don't talk about it enough. But what does that do? Those may seem like harmless acts, but on the other end of it, you have people that have devoted their life to upholding the integrity of these knowledges. And when you swoop in and don't know those histories, don't know those intentions and those protocols and practices, and just do it just to do it, that hurts these people. That is harmful. So I will get off that soapbox. Great question.
I have a quick question for y'all because I put it in the title of the talk today. Can you talk a little bit about the Growing Thunder Collective? Because I know it's not just the three of you, but it's your larger family.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of us. Go ahead, Mom.
Okay, so because my mom has how many grandchildren?
24.
24 grandchildren, and everyone is artistic. Every one of them has some kind of artistic ability. They all do something, and they all know if they're dual tribes, they know their other tribal styles. They're very knowledgeable people. So I was thinking about this, and in 2018, I decided, okay, well, what we should do is uphold them as part of our family and acknowledge everybody gets acknowledged the same way. So I decided in 2018 I'd start the Growing Thunder Collective, which are all of the grandchildren and the future great-grandkids and whoever's going to come up with being an artist, right? And it's for us to have our close family ties and to be able to celebrate each other, share knowledges, give these gifts of different types of knowledges to each other. And so they create this closeness, hopefully, and they stick with it. So a few years ago, we were asked by the Denver Art Museum to do a piece for them. And because I had just started this collaborative, I decided, okay, this piece I'm going to make this into a learning piece. And so we decided we're going to do a full women's regalia because this is what they asked us for. So we're telling part of our family histories in it, and I'm including all of the grandchildren that would like to participate and are able to participate. And so we've met several times this last year, worked and talked about our designs and things we wanted to place on this dress. And the dress is here with us today. That's what we're working on. And to me, it's the greatest thing in the world, right? To be able to have them have these knowledges and understandings of the designs and why we're putting these designs in these certain places and why we're including them and what they mean and what has to be on the dress and the shape of the dress. Everything has meanings. And so now they all know this. And so they are all part of this, and I hope it encourages them to keep going. And it has, with a lot of them have taken off with it. Man, they're artists now. They're out there at the art shows. So it's really good, and I'm proud of all of them. I love every one of them.
So I think like the Growing Thunder Collective was a really amazing tool that really embodies like what my mom and my grandma are upholding with like making sure that this survives for the grandbabies and the great grandbabies, because it is like, yeah, any one of the grandbabies that wants it is a part of the Growing Thunder Collective. I wish we were more active on social media, but if you're looking at non-tech people, we do this. We don't do tech stuff. But like you can go on our Instagram and you could see, you know, Peyton Ray's things. You can see Marita's things. You can see photos of us sitting at the same table last year talking about the designs of this dress, because my mom sat us all down at the same table and said, we want to visually document through this beadwork our family history. What do you all want to make sure we tell? And that was one of the coolest things, to be at this big table with, there was like, how many were there of us, Bugga? 16?
Yeah, I think like 15 or 16.
Yeah, of us literally sitting at the same table and having this discussion about our family and what we want to place on this dress to represent us and our people, and what we all went around and said what we wanted to contribute to it. You know, we had some that, you know, they sat there and they laid down stitches and they said, oh, I can bead. We had others that said, well, I can work on the dentalium, I can work on the shells, I can work on the tack belt, I can do this and I can do that. And so that's what this looks like.
That's wonderful. I think we have time for one more question, if anybody has one last question for our incredible speakers. Okay, one last one up here.
I just wanted to know how you ever say goodbye to these pieces.
Oh, I get to visit them. I've been so lucky. I get to revisit with my pieces. I know a lot of my personal collectors, private collectors, and I'm able to go visit their homes. A lot of the museums, I get to go visit the pieces, and we spruced up all the dolls at the Heard Museum a few years ago, and so they are back out on display again. So I never really lose touch with them. A lot of them, I see them, and then it's like seeing an old friend when you see them again, right? So, yeah. So quickly, we can tell you a few things that we are up to.
Yeah, we have a minute for that? Okay.
Please do.
Okay. So, like I say, we're working on this commission piece for the Denver Art Museum, and we hope to have that done by this fall. And we have a film that we've been working on, and we got a grant through Native Arts and Culture Foundation, and so we filmed that all this last year, and we hope to be continuing with the film later this year. And we currently have in the works a retrospective show that's coming up with the Joslyn Museum in 2027, and it's going to be a traveling show. It'll cover several venues. And what else is going on?
Simultaneously with this dress, we are also back home in Fort Peck working with other dresses. So this last year, we did several trips back home, and we have helped our community lay out 10 dresses. So as we work on this, they are working on theirs, and like the hope and the intention is like we all take them out together and dance them out. Yeah. And Cameron's going to be graduating this year.
I'm getting my degree.
What else are we doing?
Well, places you can see us, like I said, I mentioned the Heard Museum. So we have that is in the permanent collection. So anytime you're down there in Phoenix, you can see the dolls. And we're in there with Jamie Okuma and Rhonda Holy Bear.
And one of your horse masks is also out. And then the Joslyn is out. They have your guys' pieces on display.
My mother has pieces that are going to be opening up at the Idle Gorge at the Radical Stitch show.
Yep. Radical Stitch opens this weekend.
I also have pieces at Walt Disney World. I'm with the mouse. So until 2029, we have pieces in the Epcot Center in their natural histories, American histories section.
And then the show at NMAI is up right now.
Oh yeah, and there's a show at NMAI that we're involved with ledger drawings and stuff. I have a little soft sculpture figure in that as well. What is it?
Unbound.
Unbound.
And I'm here doing mom things. Oh yeah, this is our 40th year. So we will see you all at Santa Fe Indian Market.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Can we give another round of applause to the Growing Thunder? Thank you. Thank you so much for closing out our series in style. All of our events will be up on our YouTube channel, so if you missed any of them and you want to revisit them, they'll be up. If you want to watch this one again because it was so awesome, you're welcome to watch that again or share it with people. But yeah, that's it for this year's series. We were so grateful for all of our speakers, and so thank you all for coming. I know many of you came to all of them. Thank you, and have a good rest of your day.